So this video is about what panel size do you go with, and which way should you lean with respect to micro inverters versus regular string inverters. You can kind of see that we have all kinds of cost per watt here and all kinds of sizes. You can pay, 95 cents a watt for Panasonic, right? Or you can, I think, get some of these larger panels like this Canadian Solar here for 50 cents a watt. Wow, seems like a pretty good deal. So what size of panels should you use? And as far as inverters, I'm speaking to grid tie systems. You can buy an inverter, a 5,000 watt inverter for $1,200, $1,300 for 6,000, why would you use a micro inverters versus string inverter? So there's kind of some things that I'd like to discuss about that. Generally, usable roof space is kind of one of your main constraints once you figure out the size of your system, and whether you've got shade or not will usually lean you in one way or another toward micro inverters and optimizers versus string inverters. And the number of basically your roof design, maybe you only want to put down one set of rails in your rack system, and you don't want to put more than one, because when you do, you're going to incur extra cost, and it's just going to be a little bit of extra hassle to put that up. So maybe it's going to be better if you have a bigger panels, so you can kind of see, well, the width of the panel that doesn't vary very much, but the length of the panel on the larger panels, that's where the dimensions vary. So the other thing is a lot of your project costs are fixed, and it's kind of a stair-step thing where there's fixed costs of a permit, for instance, are $400. The Edison cost is $75, and you're going to pay that no matter what. The electrical costs to basically run wire to the panels or a rack is basically fixed, and it probably won't take that much extra to run to another rack, depending on where your rack's located, right? As far as I think the racking costs are fairly big. So we can kind of take a look at it. Basically, my cost for this one rack you looked at, the two rails, setting the two rails and putting all the holes in the roof and everything, which was a lot of labor, it was $625. So basically, for 7 panels, I paid $90 a panel. Basically, the things that drive the costs are, I think mainly the rack. So if you don't want to put in another rack, it might be a good idea if you just go buy the more expensive solar panel. If you've got no a better way to pick up, if you got no better way to pick up the difference between 355 watts and 385 watts, you go ahead and go with the bigger panel. So now we're going to kind of talk a little bit about micro inverters versus string inverters. One of the things that you consider, of course, is shading. Now, shading and microinverters, shading is probably microinverters take care of that problem better, but they do have optimizers, and optimizers they cost microinverters cost like $129 each, and you'll pay $70 for an optimizer. Now, I believe that you can just add the optimizer where you have the shading problem, and so maybe that will take care of your situation. Battery backup is something that a lot of people consider after the fact. In general, it's better to have a DC system, the DC running from the panels down to your battery charger, than it is to have AC. So I would say advantage string inverter if you think you're going to do battery backup in the future. As far as incremental growth, whether you want to add panels, as long as you plan for it, I don't see much advantage toward microinverters or string inverters. They're both pretty easy. I think the microinverters are a lot simpler to add, and it's just a simpler system. And one of the reasons that I like the AC microinverters is that the AC wiring is generally safer than DC wiring. So I'll just give you a quick break-even analysis I did based on microinverters. So basically, I had $1,200 is what the string inverter costs, and microinverters cost $129. So basically, my break-even is nine panels, or 9 modules. So my situation was I had 7, so I chose microinverters. So I'm going to show you another, how I broke down the math. Like let's take this example with those 355 watt Canadian solar panels and the 385 watt hand was, which I ended up getting. So the thing is, you basically take the panel costs and the racking and the microinverter, you add all that up. Okay, so and you take the difference between the two. It's like somewhere around $50, but you divide by the number of watts, and you kind of say, well, it's really 4 cents a watt. Is the difference, and it's not 9 cents a watt, right? But does it really matter? Because the situation you got is to get that extra 30 watts, the difference between the 385 and the 355, if you're going to have to put some more rack in, it's not worth it. Just get the bigger panel. One of the problems that you run into with the microinverter is, the spec for the microinverters are 295 watts for the IQ7 Plus. Now there's going to be an IQ7A out that's going to have more capacity, but you got to figure this out, right? So you basically have yourself a situation was, okay, I've got a 385 panel, but I've only got 295 watts of capacity. So the DC to AC ratio for the 385 is 1.31. Okay. Well, okay, so is that going to, am I buying the 385 panel and not going to be able to use it? Well, as it turns out, some smart guys have modeled this, for my location, and they said, well, if you were facing south and if you had the ideal roof tilt, it turns out that you would lose 3.4 kilowatts per year. So really, you don't lose much, because what happens is the stars aren't in aligned that well. You're not going to be actually hitting above 295 too much. It doesn't add up. So this 3.4 kilowatts is something like $1 in energy cost over the year. So and if you went with the 385, you'd have 30% more power output. Even though it's kind of scary buying a 385 and only having 295 of power like the specs, it's really not such a bad deal. So I think that kind of summarizes my whole kind of thinking on microinverters and string inverters and panel size and everything. And I wish you a lot of luck with your project. Thank you.